Hey guys, welcome to day 4 with Lil Bit. We are going to do some round pen join up and inside turns, and then we're going to go ahead and show you some body movements as far as backing, yielding the hindquarters, and shoulder yielding. We're going to get started here with join up in the round pen. He's very eager to follow, and then when he decides to move off, I go ahead and let him commit to the mistake before sending him. Today he was a little bit full of himself. He was a bit all over the board, I guess you could say. That's okay. You're going to have some steps back, and even though I wouldn't call this a step back, it was just something that we took a smaller step forward than we might have seen the other days. And that's okay. You're going to have those kinds of days. Everybody has their off days, even horses and trainers. So go ahead and roll with it and work with the issues at hand. Even if you have a plan for the day, be willing to change and adjust your plan to fit the horse and what's going on at that time. He is a lot more reactive today. I was able to get him to move some ways, but I was also asking for a little bit more, so he may have been responding to the pressure that I was putting on. When I asked him to follow, I was asking him to follow at a little bit of a faster pace rather than the normal meandering gait that we had been following at. So he might have sensed a little bit more pressure, making him respond in a flightier manner. That's okay. He's going to have to learn to adjust to my tempo and what I'm asking, and to read what I'm asking him to do through my body language. So you notice we jumped right into it. We had a bit of a faster pace, and I'm going to ask him to come in a little bit more quickly and have a little bit less time in between him standing and looking at me versus coming in. It's important to step up your expectations of the horse as they grow. If you keep your expectations the same as when you first started, you're never going to see them grow. You notice that he stops. I offer him to come in, and within a couple seconds, after he makes it clear that he's more interested in the ground, I go ahead and send him. This is all part of him starting to step up to meet my higher expectations. Also, you notice that his gaits are falling more into place. When he canters, he's not always cross-firing at this point. He's starting to take departures on the correct lead, and he's also starting to come into himself a little bit more comfortably and confidently, which is also something that I like to see. A lot of people like to focus on the small details of, oh, they're on the wrong lead or they're cross-firing. But deal with the issues at hand first, and the rest will simply fall into place. Sometimes it might take a little extra training, but at the beginning of his training, it's not going to be something that I need to worry about picking apart his gaits. I'm sure you have noticed at this point he's gotten a little bit more distracted with the things going on around him. You probably saw the horses running in the other side of the pasture. He was looking at that. And at this point, he really starts losing his focus. That's okay. Stay with it. Continue to stay persistent in what you're doing. In a minute or so, probably, the camera will stop recording because of the heat. Started to bother the camera, but you can tell that he is really not tuning in with me at this point. He's really more focused on what's going on out there, so I go ahead and start moving him a lot more quickly. I give him the opportunity to come in, but then at the same time, I make a quick decision after he's had a couple seconds to process that he's not coming in. Timing is everything when working with a horse, so if you're behind or ahead on reaction times, or they're gonna notice. Also, instead of just running in circles and increasing the pace, which tends to get a horse a little bit more nervous, like him, he did tend to go more close to the fence, and I don't want to get him hurt, so I start to change more directions as well, asking him for inside turns. And notice how he starts turning out more often. He's starting to get a little more frantic and disoriented, it seems like, because he's worried about what's going on. So we start doing things to get his attention and focus on us. Notice how I respond when he goes ahead and turns to the outside. I make it a hard decision and then ask him for an inside turn again, and then send him, and then ask for another inside turn in the direction that we were originally going. Also notice that when he does make an appropriate inside turn, I don't jump on him immediately. I let him take off on his own at his own pace and don't encourage him to move any faster. I let the pressure off. It's very important that you continue to release pressure whenever the horse does the correct thing. And if I were to continue to stay on him, it would show no difference as to when he does an outside turn and when I'm correcting him in that way. You will also notice that when he makes an inside turn, he really does come into the circle quite a bit. So you will see me toss my rope towards his shoulder to push him more inward. He is a very pushy horse, and this is a pushy behavior in a way. And it's also lazy, as in he's not getting his shoulders over and using his haunches for the turn. He's engaging his shoulders more. So I want to encourage him to move his shoulders away and use his haunches by putting pressure towards his shoulder. Here I'm giving him the option to come into me and seeing if he'll start to focus. He's not, so I go ahead and ask for an inside turn. I'm trying to calm things down as he was very excited and starting to get frantic, as you saw, turning to the outside. So try and tone down the situation by relaxing your posture a bit, continuing to have him go and asking for more turns. Things get dangerous when the situation gets too intense or when the horse starts to get frantic, so we never want to try and get it to that point. Try and keep things mellow and calm as possible. If you need to, just stop if things get dangerous. It's not worth getting hurt. This is just a few minutes after that round pen session. The camera did stop on me, so we weren't able to get the full time of the session. We missed a minute or two. However, we went to resume right here. I like that he's following gently. We did end that session on a calm, relaxed note. He calmed down rather quickly and was willing to tune in after I started lowering my energy. Our energy has a lot to do with it, and when you start to get more energetic, the horse usually feeds off of that. Same as if you start to lower your energy, they will do the same. First, I'm making sure that he is in tune with me. My goal is to start doing some lead work and in-hand work, as moving the hindquarters, backing, and yielding the front end. So I want to make sure that he's in tune and ready to focus on what we're about to do. Here we're going to start with the shoulder yield. I'm going to position myself on the side with my body about centered on his shoulder, or his neck, and my right hand on his shoulder and my left hand up near his face and head. I tap the air with both hands, and then tap his neck with the stick in cadence. It's going to be similar to tap air 2, 3, 4, tap neck 2, 3, 4, and so on, escalating the pressure until you get the desired reaction. We're looking for the front foot to cross over, the inside front foot to cross over the outside. I mix new commands in with a few commands that he is familiar with, such as moving the rear end. He has done this before based on his knowledge and reaction to what I'm asking. He seems to know what I'm asking, so I assume that he has done this before. And then I go ahead and start asking for the front end again as I switch sides. Use every moment as a training moment. It's easy to get into wasting time with things or wasting efforts. So go ahead and instead of maybe walking around, ask him to yield for a moment. Get creative and do things to help better you and your horse, and to keep it from becoming too routine and boring. We worked on backing yesterday, however the camera had cut off so you were not able to see it in the beginning stages. However, this is day 2 of backing with indirect pressure. He does back with direct pressure just fine. Direct pressure means that he has pressure on the nose and is pushing him backwards. Indirect pressure is just that. It's indirect pressure on the nose. It's starting with a subtle cue that does not have contact with the horse and then escalating to the point where you have contact and making it uncomfortable. So you watch me shake my finger or my hand at him, and it's not moving the rope much at all. As I escalate, it begins to wiggle the rope a little more and a little more until I need to shake it using the clasp underneath his chin, possibly to bump him in the jaw to get him to back. The reason you're starting with the most minimal pressure is because eventually he will learn that that is what you do every single time before you get to the point of using the clasp under the jaw. So he'll want to move at the lightest and the least invasive cue, and that would be the hand or the finger whip. Indirect backing is excellent for horses that just want to be in your space or don't want to give up their own space. This allows you to stand your ground firmly and have them move rather than moving with them as the direct back might ask. Yesterday, I was able also to do some desensitizing, as you will see here. He was moving all over. He got really nervous. He tried to crowd me. And as you'll see, I keep my hand up. My left hand is up by his face to keep him from leaning into me. I keep this moving a little bit so that when he does push his head into my hand, it bumps him and he feels that pressure and stops moving into me. If I drop my hand, he is more likely to come into my space. This is a constant visual reminder that I am there and that he does not need to come into me. Whatever you do on one side, you will do to the other. with any horse. This is also why I try to mount the horse from both sides, both the left and right, rather than the traditional right side consistently. Spanking the ground gets them used to the sound of the stick and string slapping the ground. It also gets them used to this big motion of swinging next to them with a stick and with a wiggly rope. So it helps them get used to that, as well as big movements from their handler that they may not be used to or accustomed to. For the next movement that I'm going to do, I like to use the phrase that Clinton Anderson has coined, flogging with kindness. You're throwing the quote-unquote spooky object over the horse and allowing it to touch them, and you're allowing them to get used to the movement of it coming over them as well as touching them and gently coming over them. It's very important that you do not allow the object that you are flinging over them to hurt them at this point, as that would do a lot of damage as far as trust goes and the ability to believe that it will not hurt them. I have used this exercise on many horses who have issues with their feet being handled to allow them to get used to something being touching them. Frequently, when you have a horse that is fearful of his feet being handled in the backs especially, he will kick at this object, and it's best to be consistent and steady with the pressure. Don't stop when the horse kicks. Continue to keep the movement, otherwise they learn that kicking gets the object away. In this exercise, try to start with the back, the neck, the belly, the rump, then move to the legs on the back, and then do the front legs. You want the horse to be comfortable with every area of his body. The most comfortable area usually is to start with the back and the rump and the neck. Also with this exercise, I like to use the tail end of the lead rope as well, as that is something you will consistently have. You may not always have a training stick, so I like to use other objects that I will always have with me when working with a horse. Most likely, I will have a lead rope. I finished by doing something he is familiar with without the training stick and with just simply the lead rope as well. Again, it's always important to use something that you know that you'll have available when you need it, and make sure that the horse responds to the lightest tools possible. Here I'm just going to do a little bit of leading and then yielding the hindquarters to get him to look and swing his hindquarters away from me. He has a problem with stopping and then coming into you more, so I really want to focus on getting him to swing his hindquarters away from me with energy. Hey y'all, we're back in here, same day. Didn't feel he was quite done, but he did need a drink, and so I also sprayed him down the hose that is pretty warm. So we got a little bit of a breather, but I didn't feel we were quite done yet, even after some of the basic body maneuvering parts. So I got him back in here, hopefully just to finish on a little bit better note. We ended pretty calmly with that, but we didn't end where I wanted with groundwork out here in the round pen. So yeah, just hoping to get him in a little bit better mind frame before I turn him loose. Get him thinking a little bit more. He was really reactive out there in the pasture as I let him to get a drink. I expect to some extent, but just really became pushy and such. So I see some holes at the very beginning that we're just going to go ahead and fill right now, since we are still in the beginning. So we're just building on what we've been going over, and I'm hoping to just, as we work on that, go ahead and see those holes filled before they get started. And we'll those are my kids. We have a pretty willing partnership here to some extent. He is with me quite a bit, but then he also chooses when he leaves, and that's what I kind of want to eliminate before we proceed. Really like to be completely on the same page, because the stronger this is on the ground, the better chance we'll have in the saddle. So even if we end up doing this every day for the next 10 days, I really think it's worth it to have a solid foundation. Good boy. especially given that he is a 9-year-old. He's got a lot of history, much more than any 2 or 3-year-old would have. Granted, it's good history with the same owner, but it's also more definition in what he is at this point. I need to teach him how to be with me. And that'll translate under saddle. Good boy. Ready? We'll send him out one more time. Remember, it's not a punishment. Simply seeing his frame of mind, moving him through his gates, and asking him of something. I'm not going to ask him too long. Obviously, he's very tired. I'm going to ask him to go the other direction because that's where I was asking, but I'm pretty close. That's good, boy. Of course, my kid. She's crying. Boy. Hold on, baby. Sorry about that. And whoa. Whoa. Please be quiet and wait. That's the kind of note I'm okay with ending on.